Good morning. Live at 10 with Jen. This is Random Dialogues 52. Random Dialogues is about giving people an opportunity to have a voice and to share perhaps something that they're making a difference within the world. And I'm joined today by lovely Jen, and she's going to introduce herself and share a little bit more about her book today, which is being launched on February the 14th. Welcome, Jen.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me on. That's a pleasure. My name is Jen, and I'm the author of Cupid's a Psycho. So you'll find me under JN Gale, because there was another Jen Gale, would you believe, also interested in some of the same stuff as me. It's a terrible coincidence. So yes, Cupid's a Psycho is a young adult fiction novel set in Glasgow, and it centres on a character called Blythe, who has made a whopper of a mistake. So the book is really about how actually you can make pretty big mistakes in life, and you can recover from them as well, because the people that matter to you, the people that love you, will often see these mistakes for just what they are. They don't necessarily define you. You can get beyond them. And that's really important in a world where I think that can be very unforgiving. So, Jane, we were talking yesterday about, what are the main things we want to sort of get across. And since that chat, I was thinking, and I thought, actually forgiveness is a huge part of it. I mean, love is a part of it. Talking about feminism, how, young girls are treated now, how they were treated when I was growing up. But actually forgiveness is, I think, the one thing that this has to make, I think, a difference. And it's perhaps something that we neglect. I think forgiveness is underrated.
And not just forgiving each other, forgiving ourselves, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it definitely helps if people can forgive us and actually help us on that road. But yes, we can. I mean, that's certainly something that I struggle with. I do beat myself up. I have a very good memory that helps as a writer, but it does mean that I think everyone gets this, don't they? They have memories that replay, and it'll be a sort of 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, that thing I did 10 years ago. And then you get old. Oh, that thing I did 20 years ago. You remember, things trigger it, and it's awful. So yeah, I'm quite bad like that. I definitely do dwell on these things. So for me to write a book about forgiveness is kind of funny, but I suppose kind of apt. And I mean, it's published by Arkbound, and Arkbound are based in Bristol and Glasgow, and so they are really about bridging divides. So they publish books sort of about homelessness, about people who are sort of from people who are marginalised, or the books that talk about these things. And so that was why Cupid's a Psycho was a good fit for them, and that's why they embraced it as much as they did. So that's something that they are keen to emphasize, and certainly it's something that, I mean, again, I was thinking about it that there've been points in my life where it's been very, very difficult to sort of make ends meet. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that I managed to do certain things by the skin of my teeth, and by that I mean that my partner was able to retrain. But things were in place to allow us to do that. For example, you could get money from the Open University to study. I did that, and then a few years later, that funding was reduced. It wasn't there. So all the things that allowed him to retrain were sort of pulled away, and it was just within the space of a few years. So we had our tax credits cut, but in a few years it was much more brutal. So everything got more brutal. So it said in 2016, and it was weird because I wrote it just a few years after that. It seemed very current. So go back to 2016. David Bowie's just died. The referendum is coming up on our membership of the EU, but people are not really engaging with that much. Surprisingly, I think people assume they know how it's going to go. And obviously a lot of us were very surprised with how it went. So, at that point, David Cameron had his majority. And so the cuts to things like tax credits were just cut down more and more. And I just really do feel that I was on the cusp of just being able to make it through that. I can certainly remember getting a letter saying your tax credits have been cut, but this will throw you into financial hardship. So we will reduce the payments until you have repaid what we have overpaid you. I mean, loads of people got this letter because the thresholds changed.
Yeah, me too.
And then a few years later, I got a letter saying But basically what the letter said was it no longer mattered. It no longer mattered if you were thrown into financial hardship. If you owed HMRC money from overpaid tax credits, you weren't going to get a thing until it was repaid, and it didn't matter if it put you into financial hardship. I remember getting that letter. That was a big bit. I thought, yeah, that was significant, because I remember turning to my partner and saying, if that had happened to us, would you have been able to retrain? Would you have been able to do it's, you know, it's a lot of money, and particularly when you're struggling, it goes quite far. So yeah, it has a huge impact on your life, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. That those little cuts, there's definitely a point at which it prevents you, I suppose, really ascending in life. There was something in the news yesterday I saw. Are you familiar with Terry Pratchett, Sam Vimes' Theory of Economics, which is about a character in the Discworld called Sam Vimes, and he's got boots that he has so little money that he buys the cheapest, nastiest shoes, but he has to keep buying them. And his feet are always wet anyway because they're rubbish. Whereas a rich person could afford a very lovely pair of boots, and they would do them for years, and actually he's spent a lot less money on them. But that's sort of those kind of economic theories. So yeah, I lived through that, and it does wear you down. It fogs your thinking when you've got that anxiety behind you. It's very hard to think straight. You know, I certainly was not in the situation that I'm in now, sort of mentally. And I don't mean that as I was in some kind of terrible deep depression or anything, but it's just, it does wear you down. It drags you down. It's very hard to get by. So yeah, I feel that I was positioned to write about that. That's also something that comes up in the book. Dealing with, I think, also the Valium crisis in Glasgow, which also affects, it's all over the UK, but particularly Glasgow and Dundee, as I understand it. And we were saying yesterday about how, you know, we often look at drug problems and think they can be addressed in the way they were perhaps in the 80s and 90s, that the problems are the same, and they're not. You know, it's very, very different, but we aren't really talking about it. I think because people are sort of, they're not really affecting us directly. I think we can't see it, so it's out of sight, out of mind.
So if we're going to purchasing your book, who's an ideal person who's going to read it? Who's it aimed at particularly?
Well, obviously, I think every writer wants to say it's everybody. I'd love that. I think I'd love to say that anybody who remembers what it was like to be 16, 17. But yeah, so it's definitely aimed at sort of older teens, early 20s. So I definitely hope that people who were 16, 17 in 2016 enjoy it, you know. So definitely late teens to early 20s ideally, but somebody younger could read it. It's funny, my daughter's 13 this year, and she's sort of saying, can I read it? And it's quite worrying.
Right. Okay.
Not in there. I think you'll be okay with it, but yeah.
And one of the reasons we originally met was through the library in Guildford, and I was putting on you encouraged and enabled it to happen, the family wellbeing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So people came along with their children, and we did some fun stuff and some serious stuff. And then we've stayed in contact, as I have done with some of the other families that came along. And we talk a lot about resiliency in the sessions, and we've continued to have conversations about resiliency, particularly with our girls. You know, how do you think this could empower, not empower and, support, young people, young girls? What, is there a message there that's going to make a difference?
Yes, I mean, that's very important, because Blythe is a character who does roll with the punches. She dusts herself down. She's not particularly dramatic, and I think girls are often expected to be. And I think we were saying yesterday how if a boy is very shy, there's often a desire to sort of a stronger desire to pull them out of themselves. Whereas many people look upon a shy girl as a sort of ideal girl. The girl who's not going to say anything is ideal in many people's eyes. And so, stay as you are. We don't want you to bring you out of yourself. We don't want to particularly listen to what you have to say. Now, Blythe isn't shy, but she is, when she does communicate, she's very, very clear. She knows her own mind, but she doesn't make a fuss. She's not a drama queen. She's just a grifter, really. Is that the right word? have to check. But yes,
can use
she
it.
sort of carries on,
Okay.
and she can. Yeah, I'm going to be mulling over that later. Yeah, she does kind of get on with it, and I think that's almost the problem. I think other people would have made perhaps a big deal and said I'm in distress, and she doesn't. And when in terms of making mistakes, once you've understood that you can deal with them and get over them, that's resilience, isn't it? You know,
Yes,
it's actually understanding,
absolutely.
giving yourself that is it.
Mm.
So her mistake is that it's made because she has gone through life largely ignored. We're talking about the sort of economic circumstances. Well, she's somebody who's grown up in that too, and does just get on with it. And then there's a line in the book where she says something along the lines, she sort of thinks, well, if I was to talk to you about my situation, it would just sound like a catalogue of failure. And I don't know that you'd really understand it, so I'm not going to bother.
Mm.
And that's generally what's happened here. But then a boy shows an interest in her, and he's nice. There's nothing wrong with him, but she doesn't really like him that way. And she breaks up with him over a Skype call. So that dates it. It's a Skype call. And of course, then I think it's changed now. I don't think it's possible to record someone without their knowledge, but then it was. You could record a Skype without knowledge. And there she's got this proof of somebody who really, really cares about her. And it's there, and it's never been seen before. Nobody's ever, seen her in that way. She's completely ignored. And when somebody says, oh, you broke up with him, why'd you do that? Suddenly there's an interest in her, which comes from that. Oh, I didn't think he's sort of above your level. He's a bit, I would have expected him to dump you. Well, then she's thinking, actually, I dumped him, and I'm going to show you. And of course, nobody then sees it that way, because, of course, they just see her as doing this. This is just seen as a complete act of cruelty. And understandably, people are understandably angry at her. But of course, then everything spirals. And so she's subject to a great amount of hate. And somebody comes to sort of help her, not because, it's really the boy she's dumped. His best friend is then told, can you just see her on her way home? Because I'm worried that she's going to get beaten up. And I don't like her, but I don't want her to get beaten up. So then he walks with her and he talks with her, and, sort of one thing leads to another. And then, but suddenly does understand what's happened, does see it for what it is. And that can happen to anybody. I think that's how something can seem on the surface isn't necessarily representative of what's actually happened. So, but then he's in a terrible dilemma, because it's his best friend is still reeling from this very humiliating thing. This footage is out there of him being dumped and being very upset about it. And then, but then he's also thinking, well, I really sympathize with this girl. I really want to support this girl. What do I do? And so that's really sort of what the book is about. And also her brother, Blythe's brother, has left school and is completely at a loss, really, as what to do with himself. He hasn't had a good time at school. And that's something that's really important. I keep saying really important. I must stop overusing that. is I think when somebody leaves school, there's a sense of, well, if that didn't work out for you, that's it. What did you expect? It's your own fault. And going back to 2016, I can remember a lot of people posting things up about, why would you be worried about immigrants stealing your job? You don't even have a standard grade or a GCSE. You're an idiot. People were saying things like that, and I think, oh, you don't know. It's all very well to say that when you've gone to a good school and you've got a stable home life and everything's grand. But if you haven't had that, if you've had a horrible experience at school, maybe you've been bullied and you haven't attended as a result of being bullied, and you suddenly find yourself out of school, you're in a predicament, and actually maybe you're deserving of sympathy. Maybe, and I'm not excusing anything. A lot of the sort of racist feeling that came around about that time, which we all know sort of happened. There was an increase in racist attacks. But I can help but feeling like, well, if you're demonizing people and they're going to get angry, and it's almost like, well, this is sort of human nature. But certainly, yes. So her brother's another very sympathetic character in the book. So I think I've sort of explained this what it's really about and the kind of things it looks at.
Mm. And I've put up earlier your where are we going to find you, Jen?
Mm-hmm.
And I found Jen the Wren on Twitter, and I know you've updated your website this week as well. This is kind of sometimes a bit of a nudge, isn't it, doing these? We'd better get all sorted out.
Well, yeah, because it was only when I spoke to you I didn't realise the website was down, and it had been down from Wednesday, and I hadn't realised. So thank you for that. Yes, the website's now up and running.
And what I'll do is I'll put some more information in the write up. So if you've watched or you're watching and you want to connect with Jen or you want to add anything to the chat, please do. We'll come back and check in on this thread. So coming along today, hopefully, I sort of saw Jen posted that she'd written a book, and I was like, oh, magical. And I said, do you want to come and chat about it? And she said yes. So we're here today, and hopefully it's an opportunity for Jen to sort of start sharing her message, getting clear on how on her message. And I'd love to, hopefully people are watching, and we'll get some more opportunity for Jen to go and share her message with the world.
Yes, I'm very, very new to this. I've been writing for a very long time, and I love doing it. But yeah, so first book next month, and I hope that's the first of many. That'll be great.
Yes. And talking of significant people, I think with resilience, I've read some of your blogs and the conversations we've had, just that one person making a difference in somebody's life. And,
Oh, yeah. Are you referring to the arts piece?
Yes. And and just going through school and the art, like talking about mistakes, and if you're feeling that you've got people that you can make mistakes around, and you're in a community or friendship group that you feel like, I'm going to give this a go. I feel there's that foundation of support for me, and I'm going to give it. I'm going to try it. So even like today, like I'm coming here, it's like, let's just give it a go, and let's just share the message and do it. Just do it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that when you go on social media, everything seems to be funneled very, very precisely. And I don't feel that I kind of necessarily fit too well into a lot of not to use too many buzzwords, but things like identity politics. I've always found that wherever I am, if I've gone to a church, say, I think, well, yeah, I like bits of that, but not bits of that. And I'm always a bit like that. I'm also when in many situations with a friend of mine, a little bit, but I seem to belong in the nuance.
You belong in the random dialogue.
Sort of lacking. Yeah.
The randomness. Yes. There's another guy I work with. We do some of these with him. We sort of the art of random. I think we've got the hashtag quiche or niche. Or niche or quiche.
I can't even spell quiche.
No.
I've been trying for years.
Well, thank you very much for joining me this morning and sharing.
Thank you for
exciting book launch, which is yet again due on the 14th of February. I've pre-ordered mine, so I'm very excited to read it and share it with my daughter and son. Well,
I'd love to know what you think of it and what your children think of it.
Thanks. And we'll speak. Well, I'll end the broadcast now. Oh, there's someone in the comments. Let's just see who's Jason. Quiche. I don't know if you can see it.
Genuinely, that's true. I was saying, can you put the quiche on? And it wasn't even coming up on predictive. And eventually I just said, it's the eggy pastry thing with cheese on it. Because my spelling of quiche was so out that nothing would recognise it. So that's absolutely true.
I had a friend who used to call it quitchy. He couldn't, when he first sort of spelled it, it was like quitchy. It's quiche. So on that note, I'm going to end. Thank you for being here, Jason Obter, and thank you for being here, Jen, and anyone else tuned in. And I've just put one more banner up because I like doing banners. Let's see. This summarises Jen, author, library lover, eco-smug bike rider, music listener.
Yeah, I should maybe change that. I try not to be too smug on a bike. There are not that many people around here to see me being smug. So.
See you soon.